everybody again. This is Dr. Francois Tessier, and we are having today our 5th episode on spiritual nutrition. Dr. Suzanne, welcome again. That's an amazing program. Everybody is completely crazy about your content. And today you again prepared us something absolutely astounding. What is our subject today?
Well, today it's about energy transfer, but focusing on the digestive system. When we talked about taking in energy from our source, and how does that get transformed into our body so that every cell is able to reach its full potential. And so when we look at that process of energy transferring, looking at, as we talked earlier in a couple other episodes, about that process of photosynthesis, where the sun, that powerful energy, transforms into the plant, and then we take in the results of that plant, the fruit, the vegetable, the roots, and we process that through our digestive system. And that digestive system starts in our mouth, goes through the stomach, into the intestine. And it's a very, very complex. It is the energy system of our body. It's where that sunshine gets transformed into the cells and moves through the system. And making sure that that system is in good shape so that all that good energy can come in is critically important to that transferring process. And there are a few things that interfere with that. Currently in our planet, we have environmental toxins that are increasing, and that is really interfering with that energy transfer. Whether it's a pollutant from fossil fuels, with you're standing by a bus stop, whether it's the stuff that you put on your skin that has chemicals in it and additives and preservatives, whether it's in the water, things that they have been put into the water so that a central water system, whether it's a well or a central water system of a city, is able to move through the pipes and what it picks up along the way. So we know that our environmental toxins are increasing, and they're increasing on all levels and impacting our bodies. We also know that at this stage, our food quality around the world, globally, the quality of food is decreasing. It's decreasing because of preservatives they put into it, flavor enhancers. It's decreasing because the soil is depleted, that there are genetically modified produce in our foods and coming into our bodies. Those genetic modified foods can withstand the bombardment of devastating pesticides, and those are toxins that are coming into our food chain. Anything that comes into our food chain comes into our body, comes into our digestive system. And our digestive system needs to know, what do we do with all of this stuff? And really, it's the big three. When we look at it, we're looking at the big pharma, manufactured farms, farms where 5,000 chickens are raised in one building, where mega farms, where romaine gets recalled on a regular basis because of the pollutants that are being put into the soil and on the produce. So we have the big, what I call industrial farming, pharma. Then we have big pharma, our pharmaceuticals, whether they're a prescriptive pharmaceutical or whether it is a over-the-counter. You are then impacting your body with that particular pharmaceutical that will help perhaps temporarily. Most of these are done and used by our body to mask symptoms.
How does it impact on our health? Shortly, how does it impact? What is the impact on the health?
Well, we do know that some of the pharmaceuticals, whether it's a prescription or whether you bought it over the counter, an antacid, it interferes. It's designed to mask the symptoms. It is never designed to get to the root cause of the symptom. So you might take something, let's say you have a problem with your digestion, you get heartburn, and it burns and it burns. So you take something, but all that's doing is covering up. What is the root of that symptom, that heartburn? The heartburn is telling you something, that either you've got too much digestive, that you don't, acids going into your stomach, you don't have enough digestive enzymes perhaps, maybe you have had so much heartburn and bloating over the years that you've got now a hiatal hernia and your stomach is protruding through. So it is a masking. It is never getting to the root cause of that. So our pharmaceuticals, whether they are prescriptive or over the counter, interfere with our body's ability to digest cleanly and clearly. And then the third thing is processed foods. So this is processed manufacturing farming, and these are our pharmaceuticals, but we have a whole bunch of foods out there that are full of chemicals designed to enhance the flavor, enhance the texture, enhance the shelf, how long it'll stay on the shelf. We know that sometimes something can last for 4 years in your refrigerator. Its nutrient value is about 0, but it has caloric value in some way. So I don't know, did that answer your question, Dr. Tessier?
Yes, it does. And I'm afraid I won't eat that anymore.
So when we look at this energy transfer, we've chewed our food, as the earlier image shows, that the first starts in your mouth. So chewing is a very, very important part. And if grandma said chew your food 20 times, grandma was right. Because we want the digestive enzymes, the saliva, to begin to interfere and start that digestive process right away. I was reading an article. The French believe that the sight and smells of food start the digestive process immediately. So maybe it starts with seeing and smelling, because then the saliva begins to form. And there's something to that, because I give you a sidebar. I was working with a center for acting out youth. These young adolescents had been placed in a care facility because of their behavior and their tendency toward delinquencies. So getting to energy transfer, the smelling and seeing, they were in an institution, so it smelled like pine sol, it smelled like, and so dinner time would arrive, and still these smells of floor cleaners and permeated. And I suggested that maybe some of the foods be cooked there so they could smell them coming from the oven, and they could see the smells permeating that whole area in which they were going to eat. So that begins, that energy transfer begins seeing and smelling. And then that starts the saliva. And we move down, that makes it so it can be slippery enough to go down the esophagus. And a lot of people get a lot of damage to the esophagus because they've not chewed up their food, not enough saliva, not enough slippage. There's a medical term for it. To slide down the esophageal tract and into the stomach. And there the stomach is really a pump. It churns and churns and churns with the acids and the digestive enzyme. And it tells a little flap here before it hits the small intestine, okay, you're ready to be released. And the flap opens and it leaves the stomach and into the small intestine. And it jiggles around, and here's some. The small intestine is just a whole series of a miraculous system of exchange, a miraculous system full of little villi where that lining of your small intestine, they can catch the nutrition, and it's only, the membrane is only one cell thick between getting those nutrients into your body. It's just an amazing system of epithelial cells and capillaries. It's just, you're in awe of how spirit designed this so that that energy can be transferred so beautifully to our cells and our blood cells. And then of course, it moves into the large intestine and is moved out. And so we really need to help our body get the right foods so that this beautiful, amazing system, more perfect than any manufacturing system could ever imagine, because it's the energy transfer system that can put you in awe.
Right.
And in that energy system, down there in our lower area of the intestine, lives the microbiome, the intestinal microbiome. It's amazing when you find out that we are more bacterial cells than we are human cells. When I said that to someone, they said, oh my gosh. So we have bacteria all over us, on our skin, in our hair, on our eyes, but the most amount of it lies within our intestinal tract, because that's where the bacteria is doing all of the hard work. The microbiome is more medically accessible and can be manipulated than our human cells. So that's why if you're taking some sort of pharmaceutical intervention for a problem, let's say thyroid, it's going to be absorbed into your system through your microbiome. And that's why we want to keep that microbiome really healthy. And we have not paid attention to that microbiome. It's only the last, I would say, 8 to 10 years that people are beginning to pay more attention to, you're paying more attention to your poop. That's the only way I can say it.
Of course. I have one question in regards to that, Dr.
Yeah.
This microbiome is not what we're talking about when we say that the gut is the second brain, right? The gut, the second brain's gut is into the nervous system of the gut. Is it?
Yes, and that I'm going to focus on that gut-brain connection in one of our other presentations. It's going to be focused on the neurological system and brain.
All right. Save it.
Okay, but you're absolutely right. This microbiome is so powerfully connected to the brain and the brain-gut connection, and how healthy this microbiome is, how healthy this energy transfer system this digestive system is will impact the brain. How quickly does food move through the system, the motility, how impacts that. And what I wanted to point out is that there are neurotoxins that interfere with that system's ability to really work efficiently and effectively. And those are some of those unnatural substances that impact our appetite. You might say, you know, I really don't feel hungry. And yet you know you need to eat, so that's when you tend to snack. So many of these substances really are unnatural, and they keep the body from thinking that it's always hungry. And some of those are the MSG, and there are 16 different types of MSG. Artificial sweeteners, colors and flavorings, preservatives, and texture enhancers. We all have and act as irritants to our neurological system. And what many researchers have come to call the dirty dozen. And the dirty dozen impacts that digestive system in a powerful way. And Western food manufacturing impacted the globe. And so our dirty dozen has distributed and shared a lot of nasty conditions globally. So the dirty dozen, and again, this list I will forward on to you, be happy to do that, are refined sugars and flours and salt, nitrates, things that you find in preserved meats, and genetically modified foods contain a lot of issues regarding absorbability. MSG, as I mentioned earlier, the artificial sweeteners, colors, flavors, preservatives. And when we look about modified fats, when we talk about fats, we need good fats. I'm talking about the bad ones, the hydrogenated fats. The same with sugars. We need good sugars. I'm talking about the refined and modified sugars. So don't get me wrong, but these are the dirty dozen. We have a clean dozen that we will explore over the next few parts of our program.
Right. I was about to ask, because
so just
if you have the good one, you may talk about them as well, no?
Right.
Like
so we do want to stay away from the dirty dozen, because the dirty dozen has over time been found to create a lot of difficulty in that digestive system. And that's why if we get into the little module on label reading, we look at the dirty dozen and how they've hidden it, that lobbies of industrialized food manufacturing has gotten to different lobbyists of different governments to get things approved that definitely should never have been approved. So some of the things of, this is a cartoon. We know that this famous statue of David, and let's say that he had been loaned and put on loan to North America for 2 years. And you can see he gained weight because of some fast food that were getting into his diet. And unfortunately, the North American loan, all these things have been loaned out globally and have created a great deal of obesity throughout the globe when we look at high starch and high processed foods. And the biggest determiner of cardiovascular disease is really not looking at cholesterol counts, but your waist. What is your waist, the girth? And so we know that high starch and high processed foods contribute to this phenomenon. And we know that those high starch foods like rice and potatoes also turn into sugars that are not healthy for us. So keeping the focus on this healthy gut that's impacted by good ecosystems, by good bacteria, by water, by the soils the foods were grown in, the environment we're living in. I'm curious to see with this COVID whether people wearing masks, if we're going to see less respiratory diseases and fewer problems with the gut, because with that comes antibiotics, and with antibiotics that causes problem in our microbiome. With problems with the microbiome, then bingo, we're into a vicious cycle. So we want to stay away from those pharmaceutical things, antibiotics, to keep that microbiome healthy. Because the health challenges with an unhealthy microbiome are vast. They're linking diabetes, over digestive issues, hypertension, depression, anxiety, degenerative neurological conditions, cancers, joint issues, sleep disorders. All of these are being contributed to an unhealthy microbiome. So those are just some of the health challenges that are being looked at and researched around this whole phenomenon of an unhealthy microbiome. The importance of nutrition is broken down into micronutrients and macronutrients.
Yeah.
Meaning your micronutrients are all your phytonutrients, antioxidants that only come from plants. And vitamins come from plants. You can get vitamins from animals also, and minerals. So we look at micronutrients being composed of vitamins, minerals, and our phytonutrient and antioxidants. Then we get to the macronutrients. That's our proteins, our fats that we have to have, and sugars. As I said, we need to have sugar. We cannot exist without that. So nutrition broken up into micronutrients and macronutrients. And as you mentioned earlier, we have to take in the right macronutrients and micronutrients.
Like the right fat, like the right sugar as well.
Exactly, exactly. So when we look at nutrition and we're looking at that energy transfer, plant nutrition is really densified sunlight. That sunlight has been converted and it's densified. And that stimulates that pranic response. It stimulates our response because of the light within. And we know that plant nutrition gives us the phytonutrients and antioxidants so that the cells can fight off free radicals. Because just as we breathe, sitting here breathing and talking and sharing, I'm creating free radicals. I had my fruit this morning. Well, from that will come, as any fuel, it's a fuel, there will become residue that will be eliminated. And so in that breakdown, we have that antioxidant, a free radical activity. So plant nutrition is going to give you that. Your animal sources is secondary sunlight, because that beautiful sheep or that beautiful goat, they took in the food, a plant, and absorbed the sunlight into their energy source. And So you get it secondary, and that interferes with that whole energy transfer process. It's a secondary. And we tend to lose that stimulus response, that pranic energy exchange. And there was some research looks at the pain that an animal goes through to be sacrificed for our consumption, a human consumption, that pain is also transferred into our energy system.
Yeah.
And that becomes a negative impact on our digestive system. What's very interesting to know is that meat eaters have 4 times the amount of colon cancer than vegetarians. So just a lot of research being done, and that was done several years back and published research, good sound research. So there's some good research that demonstrates that our nutrition impacts that system and that energy exchange. And we know that every food has its unique energetic signature. And I'm talking about every plant food contains its unique energetic signature.
That we can scan. When we are a pranic healer, we can scan that.
Yes, yes.
And what you just said about animals, energy that is processed, you can scan. We are scanning the food. And when we are scanning meat, the energy signature, number one, is completely different and also is lower. There is less prana because it is processed, just like you said.
And we can't, because our stimulus, our pranic stimulus response is impeded by that energy transfer of the animal's energy. It's almost like a blockage. And we're looking at the whole purpose of our program is to look at how we can nutritionally support our spiritual journey. And we want to include the foods that will do that.
Right.
And so when we look at that inner ecosystem, here's some images of our, what it looks like inside, all those bacteria and cells breaking down the microbiota. We begin to see that impacts our cravings, our metabolism, our energy levels. You just get the mood once your energy level, and critically important, the absorption of nutrients. You want to make sure that you have a microbiome that's a happy one down there, and that you're giving it what it needs so that it can absorb that good nutrition that you've prepared, that you have taken in. We know that most disease over human history has been because of infection. And up until the COVID, which has been, puts everybody top of mind, we found that people were able to, that modern medicine was able to figure out a way to diminish infectious diseases. So that what's happened, the phenomenon the last 25 years, is that chronic degenerative disease replaced infectious disease as the biggest healthcare problem in the Western world. And it still is. Even with COVID, our chronic degenerative diseases are still much more prevalent than infectious disease. And that's hard to believe, but it's true. So that gets us to looking at, all right, I'm looking at my microbiome in my digestive system, and I'm going to focus on the 3 key areas. So the three chakras that impact are organs within that digestive tract. So we'll focus on that today, and I'm not taking away from the throat chakra, which is also important in terms of your esophagus and your throat. You want to make sure that that is also remains clean and clear. But today we're going to focus on these. So if we're listening to the gifts of spirit, we are listening to those foods that will really enhance our chakras. So that large intestine really needs these particular foods that are so important. If you're feeling isolated, or you're feeling like you're bloated, get back to eating some good red beetroot. And the red beetroot, I know that it's quite in to have white beets, but get the dark red ones. Dark cranberries, if you're here in North America. I don't know how available they are globally, although I do hear that Quebec cranberries are the global what do you want to say it? Superfood. And so dark red cranberries would really be great, whether they're dried or least processing if possible. Get them, dry them, freeze them, eat them. Black beans, your dark mushrooms. We went over this before, but I can't emphasize enough how important that is. Yes. And one of the important things that we might forget is if you're constipated, this large intestine that is blocked, you're going to impact your joints. There's going to be arthritic response. Arthritis is not necessarily a disease, it's a response, it's an itis. Bronchitis isn't a disease. Your bronchial tubes get irritated. It's an itis. So your joints, your muscles, your bones are all going to be impacted if you have some blockages in inability of that large intestine to move things through at least twice a day. If it's not having a moving experience, get it moving through. And that means eating lots of fiber in the foods of that chakra. There's just some beautiful...
I need to clarify what is an itis for the sake of our audience.
Itis, an inflammation. Bronchitis is an inflammation of the bronchial tubes. Arthritis, it's inflammation of the articular
joints.
So that's what doctors often, you have an itis, bronchitis, arthritis, tendinitis is an inflammation of your tendon. That kind of.
I understand. Thank you.
So we focus on these wonderful foods for the root chakra. Some of them are root vegetables, radishes, your dark red radishes. And what's beautiful about this is it's also good for your crown chakra because inside it's white. We have, of course, tomatoes and the red peppers and strawberries. The pink of your pink grapefruits, of course, it's yellow and it has feeds both chakras. So we have this powerful, I did find some fruits that are raised in Rambutan in Asia. And again, it's red usually. I went out and got some. And again, it fits both your root chakra as well as your crown chakra. It's, but basically full of fiber, an amazing resource for fiber. It's great to help with the digestion and that energy exchange. So when we talk about digestion, it's not just moving the fibers through and eliminating, we're also looking at that energy exchange. So we need foods in there that will help keep that very fragile, thin membrane healthy and open to absorbing the good nutrients that are in your foods.
Yes, and Rambutan also very good.
Yes, I was looking for foods that would be available globally, and I could find it here in our market at Sam's on the West Island, so I was very thrilled. We're getting more and more diverse here in North America as we welcome people from around the world. So that's a blessing, is that we are introduced to foods that will feed our chakras. And again, we get to the sacral chakra, looking at orange foods, and that again hits your, it's, even though it touches the bladder, that's a part of the digestive system in a way that the water and the liquids are filtered through the bladder and the kidneys. So we want to make sure that that's clean in those lower areas that I call it below the heart, from the root chakra up to the heart chakra, is that we're keeping that area clear. And so turmeric, carrots, oranges, those are foods that are really important. Red peppers, sweet potatoes, the yellow ones. So just a variety of foods to reflect upon that can and will aid the whole energy exchange, that whole digestive tract. So then we look at the solar plexus, looking at yellow foods, pineapples, squash, peppers. And again, that's helping with the stomach. The gallbladder, well, it plays a role in that when we're looking at producing the acid that needs to come into the stomach, we need the gallbladder to work in. They're all working together. The movement, along with the peristalsis, the little villi in the intestines, is just dancing. And all of these systems come into play to make sure that our bodies can digest really well. And this is, no, it's not butter, it's tofu. And someone said, oh, is that, for those of you eat cheeses, eat yellow, dark cheese, something that's been aged for a very long time, no chemical aging. If you're going to have something, have a Parmesan that's 10 years old or 3 years old, make sure that you're having apricots and corn. All of these are wonderful for the solar plexus. And I found jackfruit. So,
wow. Did you like?
Yes.
You found
Very
them big like this, or how did you find?
No, it was much smaller, but these are images that I found.
Oh,
so again, this is going to help your stomach, your gallbladder, your solar plexus. The other thing that's critically important for that microbiome are fermented foods. Now, we look at the evolution of preserving foods, primitive man dried the food. Our indigenous people here in North America, they would dry their meats, they would dry the apples, they would dry foods. So that was a way of preserving. Then they discovered that adding things like vinegars, you could ferment foods. And I suggest a serving of fermented foods every day. It will make they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. An apple a day makes one happy microbiome. Whether you're fermenting cabbages or pickles or beets or apples, or I'm not sure, I didn't do a whole research on fermenting foods in terms of how they're fermented in other cultures. But it's definitely on my to-do list because it really is fascinating. I know that a part of my growing up ritual all of my life, and one of my only memories of my father, was making coleslaw, was making sauerkraut, using the cabbage family, as we talked about, is critical to the well-being of our intestinal microbiome. Pickling. My grandmother pickled everything. She pickled beets, she pickled cucumbers, she pickled apples. We had these little tiny crab apples that were sort of pickled. She made a chutney out of corn, and red peppers. Everything was fermented and pickled, and that helped in digestion. They ate a rich diet of dairy foods, and the fermented foods were the first digestive enhancers that man brought into the foods as a preservative, but also it helped with digestion.
Is that because it produces enzymes and bacteria that are good for us? What is the reason?
Absolutely. It produces the enzymes and bacteria that are good for us. My daughter will have saying, oh, I'm feeling ate too much. She'll go to the refrigerator and grab a dill pickle. And within 15 minutes, she's feeling better. No need for an over-the-counter drug.
Right.
So I'm just saying that fermented foods can be your best friend. You may stay away from it because the younger generations have been, their taste buds have been really, really programmed for sweet. So this has a sourness to it. I think fermented foods help deal with fats going into our body. Here in Canada, we have a tradition of putting vinegar on French fries because it does help with the digestion of that fat, not only for flavor. So make fermented foods your friend. Your microbiome will be very, very happy.
Right.
And then we have to look at supportive spices. And what am I talking about, supportive spices? For thousands of years, spices have been added to not only to enhance the flavor, so it's more palatable, to get those digestive juices going in the mouth, but they've been used medically as a way in which you can really support the digestive system. And some of those are ginger, been used over 3,000, 4,000 years where we have evidence of that being used. We have turmeric, cinnamon, and something that's excellent for the digestive system, cayenne. People think of cayenne as, oh, too spicy, it's going to upset my stomach. That's because your stomach has already been compromised. But if these spices had been a part of the whole supportive system when you're growing up, it will not be as difficult to take in. And there's a wonderful drink that a lot of people use as a cleansing, using lemon juice or apple cider vinegar, cayenne pepper, a little bit of natural honey or maple syrup and water. And you have a way in which you can cleanse and keep that digestive system supported. So support your digestive system with spices rather than prescriptions. That brings us to a little bit of a looking at how we're preparing our foods. Because some of my clients will say, I can't eat raw foods anymore. That means that the body is no longer producing digestive enzymes, that maybe the motility, the peristalsis is not working as well. But raw, we know, allows you to retain most of the, almost 100% of the nutrient value. So if I have an apple, since it's been, and I pick it directly off the tree and I eat it, I am getting 100% of its nutrient value. Now that apple's been picked and it sits in my cold storage for a month, I'm still getting 100% of the nutrients that are remaining, because as things go off the vine, they lose their nutrient value. We also know that cooking will reduce nutrient value. So to maintain as many of the nutrients, stir frying or steaming just lightly, you're going to lose some nutrient value, but you're going to maintain most of it. If you boil, that means immerse your vegetable or food in a liquid, whether you're boiling it in a broth or just water, you're going to lose some nutrients. But the key, and something we exported, a microwave. A microwaving food, you lose 74 to 97% of the nutrient value. So let's say you've gone to the market, you're so excited, you got fresh, organic asparagus, and that was wonderful. You put it in your microwave and all of the good nutrients got knocked around to a point where its value is no longer available to the human body. So being very, very cognizant of how you're preparing your food. And just in closing is that I want you to think of some guidelines to keep that microbiome healthy. Eliminate those processed sugars and sweeteners. I think one of the worst things that ever got exported is sweetened condensed milk. Probably, and so many recipes use that. So that is something you really want to eliminate. Eliminate gluten. Find grains that do not have gluten, because most of the wheats are genetically modified. You have to stay away from genetically modified foods. You want to have healthy fats. Keep your omegas through nuts and flax oils and good walnut oils and sesame oils. All of those good seeds and nuts are really good sources. Fruits and vegetables, eat them as much as possible, and then reduce caffeine and alcohol. But when I say eliminate, I mean cold turkey on those processed sugars. Have some honey, have some maple syrup, have raw sugar that's not been put through a huge manufacturing process, but eliminate it and reduce caffeine and alcohol. That's really important. And increase your physical activity. And I'm not saying start out on a regime of, I've got to walk 5 kilometers every day, up and down to 1 kilometer, 20 minutes. Do 20 minutes every day, then 30 minutes, but do some physical activity. That keeps, the more we're sedentary, the more problems we have with our digestive, our energy exchange system. So remember, it's an energy exchange from the energy of the plants to the energy that we have as humans and back to the plants. This is a system that puts any other system that a human engineer would try to put together. They're in awe of this system. It's miraculous, it's amazing, and it's for us to take care of. We were given a good system in the beginning, and it's important that we maintain that system. Those of you that might not have had a natural childbirth, but you had a cesarean childbirth, there's a whole research being done now. Why are so many people having trouble with this microbiome? And there's a real correlation between the fact that a natural birthing did not allow for the natural microbiome to enter into that infant's body. And so we look at that as a really natural way of doing things. And so keeping that microbiome healthy is critically important. So continue the journey of good food choices for your spiritual development.
We are finished. My goodness, so fast. We are running out of time. So I'm blessed. I'm very happy of this today's presentation. All right, Dr. Suzanne, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Be well, be safe. Wishing you wellness.
Thank you.